everyone, happy Friday. My name is Lori Richmond. I'm a children's author, illustrator, and an artist, and I'm so happy that you joined me here for Friday Doodle class. So today's inspiration comes from real life, just as it does every week, and today we're going to be drawing a tooth fairy. So I just went to the dentist this morning. I have a really big cavity that they had to fix, so my face might look a little funny, but it's getting better. And I've also been teaching Mona, the kitten, how to brush her teeth, or really how I brush her teeth for her. So I thought that might be a fun theme for today. And it's always important to take good care of your teeth. Okay, so before we start drawing our tooth fairy, let's do a materials check. Everyone should have paper. I've got my pad right here. So whatever you're gonna draw on. For my markers today, I actually have two Sharpies. I'm not sure which one I'm gonna use. I'm gonna decide at the last minute. This one is the Super Sharpie. Kind of sounds like a superhero. And this one is the Sharpie King Size, which means it's just really big. I have two brushes. One of them is kind of this larger round brush, and this one is a little bit of a smaller round brush. So I might use both, I might use one, I don't know. I've got my handy dandy little travel watercolor thing that has all these colors that unfolds. I just think this is so fun. I love the way that it looks. It's like a little travel set. You can find it online. I think if you just Google for travel watercolor fan or something like that, you'll be able to find it. But this is what I'm going to be painting with today. And since it's watercolor, of course I need my water to activate my paints. And so great, hopefully everybody has their materials they're gonna work with. I'm gonna switch to the other side of the table, so I'm gonna disappear for just a second, and then I'll be back. All right, let me move all of my stuff over so I can get my pad here where you guys can see it. Okay, so for our tooth fairy drawing today, we're actually gonna be accomplishing a couple of different things. We're gonna be drawing a super cute looking tooth fairy, number one, but also somebody asked me a great question recently. How do I draw an object that's white on a white piece of paper? And I was like, that's a great question. So in that context, the person was asking about a white flower, but you know, teeth are white or almost white. So that is a great question. How do you get something that is the same color of the paper to look that color? And I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So everyone take out whatever drawing tool you're going to use. I think I'm going to go with the King Size Sharpie. So for our tooth, we're going to be drawing it a little bit so it looks like it's slightly turned, because I want the tooth fairy to look like it's kind of like flying over something or hovering above like a surface. So if you were drawing it straight on, both little kind of bumps would look the same. In this case, we're gonna have one bump that looks bigger and one bump that looks smaller. So it's almost like a big hill and then a little hill. So I can draw it first and then you can follow afterwards. And you'll see that's how it'll start to, immediately we're drawing it like it looks like it's turned a little bit. So I'm gonna draw this big hill and then a little hill. So you see that? Big hill, little hill. So you guys can follow along for that. And then I'm just gonna draw a line down this side and a line down this side that have a little bit of a curve, curving inwards. So on this side, I'm gonna draw one side like that, and one side like that. And we're starting to see our tooth shape come together. And it looks like it's a little tilted because we made that little uneven hills at the top. Now for the bottom, I'm gonna make kind of like an upside down U. That's gonna be the kind of root of the tooth there at the bottom. So right now it looks a little wonky, right? But you'll see once we start adding all the details, it's gonna look like it's kind of flying and turned to the side. So next we're gonna add some eyes for our tooth. And I think we'll just do some simple dot eyes today. So we're gonna do one dot here and one dot here. Like that, can make them about the same size. And then for the mouth, we're gonna take a capital letter D and we're gonna turn it on its side. And that's gonna be the shape of the mouth. So a capital letter D, right? It's like a line and a curve. So I'm drawing it on its sides. I'm going to draw a line and then a curve, and that's the upside down letter D. But here's a fun little trick. I'm going to add one more line in the middle of that curve like this, and then I'm going to color in just the bottom part of that bottom of that letter D. And now it looks like our tooth has some teeth. I love that. A tooth fairy that has teeth. So now we've got like this really happy tooth fairy that has a little happy mouth. And I think that this tooth fairy should be holding like a wand or something, right? With like the magical dust or whatever flying off of it. So whatever the tooth fairy would carry. If I was a tooth fairy, I would have magical dust. So we'll make a little arm with a line like that that's kind of curved a little up. And then I'm gonna draw a little hand. And the hand, you can make it simple, a little circle, a little blob. It doesn't have to be exact, but I would make it little compared to the size of the tooth. I think it looks funnier. And then we'll just draw a straight line down through the hand. That's gonna be the wand. And then put whatever you want on the top of the wand. It could be a star, it could be a circle, it could be a heart, it could be another tooth. It could be whatever you want. I'm gonna put a heart on mine, like that. So now my tooth fairy has a little wand, but only one arm. I think the tooth fairy probably has two arms because they gotta carry all the goodies, right, that they give away for the teeth. So I'm gonna add another arm here by drawing a little curve on top of the tooth with another little hand. Okay, so now our tooth kind of looks like it's leaning in that direction, right? So in order to fly around, our tooth fairy is going to need some wings, right? So we're going to make some big butterfly-looking wings. And the shape of those wings, it's kind of like two letter C's that we're going to stick together. So I'll show you. We're going to draw a big wing on this side. Kind of looks like a letter C. And then we're going to draw another C down here, like that. That's one side of our wings. And then on this side, the angle of this is a little bit of a challenge. So I'm gonna see if I can make this look right. We'll add another wing there, and we would see kind of like the edge of the other wing at the bottom like that. So you kind of have the two butterfly wings behind our tooth fairy. Now for the top of the tooth fairy, we're gonna put a little crown. So, well, I'm gonna put a crown on mine. If you wanna put on yours, like little antennas with little stars or hearts or whatever you put on the wand on the top of the antennas, put whatever you want on there. Any kind of hat, headwear that you wanna add to your tooth fairy. So I'm gonna do a little crown, kind of like this. So I'll draw two lines like that, and then I'm gonna connect them with a little zigzag like that. And there's my little crown. Maybe I'll add some more little hearts up here on the top of the crown because that will match what I put in my wand. I like that. That's cute. Okay, so now we're gonna do a little magic here, right? Because the tooth fairy is kind of magical character. Right now it's kind of stuck on the page, but the tooth fairy should be flying around to all the children's pillows, you know, getting the teeth. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create the illusion that our tooth fairy is flying. And the way that we're gonna do that is we're just gonna put a shadow at the bottom here. But I want you to put the shadow kind of far away from the object. This isn't gonna be like an object on a table where the shadow is like right up against it. You might even see like a shadow that's kind of underneath my easel here. We're gonna put this shadow further away. And we're just gonna draw kind of like a blob, like an oval blob. Far away. And you see now how suddenly, magically, it looks like our tooth fairy is floating above now this surface that we've created. I love that, how just like one little line or blob can totally change the feeling of it. Okay, so now that we've drawn our tooth fairy, we are gonna start moving to color. So everyone get out your paints, your crayons, your markers, whatever you're gonna be using for color. I've got my paints right here. And I'm gonna show you guys how to make an object on a white page to look white. And we're gonna start out by painting what's called the negative space. So negative sounds like a bad word, right? Like if something is negative, it's bad or it's not something you want. But in this case, negative space just means the space that's around an object. So all of this area kind of around our tooth fairy that would be the background is called the negative space, and that's what we're gonna color in first. So I am going to mix up a nice blue. That looks like a good blue. I should have had another page for my palette today, but I didn't. So now, just gonna make it work. So now what I'm gonna do is I am going to color in the negative space. Now I'm using blue, but you guys can use whatever color you want for your background. And I don't want you to paint the tooth fairy. I want you to paint or color in the area around the tooth fairy. That awesome negative space. That is what is gonna give our illusion that our tooth is white, because now the paper is no longer white. See where I'm going with this? It's awesome. This is like more magic that happens. It's true. I think artists, all kinds of artists, writers, visual artists, dancers, singers, they really are magicians, creating something out of nothing. It's really, really a wonderful thing. So let's keep going. We're gonna go around. Glad I brought my thick brush today to paint totally around my tooth fairy. Here. I'm gonna get around as much as I can. Let's see. I think my mouth is already starting to feel less numb. That's good. Because the dentist put a special medicine in my mouth so I didn't feel what he was doing, which is good for me. And that helps. It makes it less scary to go to the dentist, because I used to be scared for many years to go to the dentist, but I put on my big girl pants and I finally went. All right, here we go. I'm filling in all of my negative space. I'm going right to that shadow, filling it all in. I actually could have used an even bigger brush for this today to fill in my background. But we're gonna keep going. Almost done. Fill it all in. Oh, I went over the tooth fairy's hand a little bit, but that's okay. This tooth fairy's gonna have a blue hand. Blue hands are cool. There we go. Oh, I definitely could have used a bigger brush here today. There we go. But you know, you just gotta make it work with the tools that you have at the time. You just keep going and you make it work. All right, cool. There, we've got my whole background filled in. So now you see suddenly our tooth looks white, right? It's no longer this white object on a white page. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill in the wings. So paint your wings whatever color you want. I'm actually gonna see if I can make mine rainbow today without making a big mess on this paper. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first put a little bit of water on my wings. Since I'm using paint, I know my friends that are using markers and crayons and other materials, you won't be able to do this because your materials don't require water. But in case you want to paint on your own with some watercolor, I'll kind of tell you what I'm doing. It's called wet on wet. And it means that you put some wet moisture on the page, some water, and then you put the paint on top of that. So we're gonna see if this will work in this vertical situation, not on watercolor paper. So I'm gonna start out with some red. I'm gonna put some red on my wings. And I'm gonna go through all the colors of the rainbow, or as many as I can do in reasonable time, so everyone doesn't have to wait for me. But see how my paint is mixing in now? It's dripping, like that's what I want. Sometimes I don't want the drips, but this time I want the drips. So now I'm gonna add in the orange, and hopefully that will mix nicely. And if not, I can just add more water, because now my water's starting to dry up a little bit. Dries pretty fast on this paper, but that's okay. Just gonna keep going. There we go. Look at these like awesome rainbow wings. Now I'll move to some yellow, and I'm gonna blob some yellow on there. I was doing these paintings of nurses that were helping in the pandemic, and I was making rainbows that were similar to this, and I kept telling people, like, all you gotta do to make one of these rainbows is just blob paint. And I don't think people believed me when I said I was really just blobbing paint on the page. But now you guys can see that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm just blobbing some paint on here to make some rainbows on this awesome little, oh, look at that, it looks magical. Love it. Okay, and then I'm gonna add some blue to finish off my rainbow here. Look at that. Hopefully that will mix up. Watercolor paper, which is not what I'm using, is actually really, it's made, you know, it's made for the paint to mix and everything. So if I did this on watercolor paper, it would look a little different than it does now, but I still think it looks pretty good. All right, now I'm gonna move on to my crown and my wand. So now I really can make this whatever color I want because I have all of these beautiful colors going on here, but I'm gonna stick with the yellow because yellow against the blue background is really gonna stand out because those guys are color opposites on the color wheel. And so they'll stand out nicely. There we go. And then maybe I will go back to the red for the heart on my little wand here, and then for my hearts that are on my crown like that. That's cute. And then maybe some rosy cheeks, right? I think my tooth fairy needs some rosy cheeks. So I'm gonna get some lot of water on my brush and see if I can get a little pink. There we go. Look at that. Little pink cheeks. So cute. And then the last thing that I'm gonna do here for this tooth fairy is, since we have like all of these nice brush strokes and all this color going on, and we have our big white object on the white page, right? Because we filled in everything around it, all the negative space, all of the details. Now our tooth really looks like it's white. I'm gonna add a little bit of a shadow kind of on this side and maybe a little underneath here to give it some dimension. And I'm gonna use some very light blue for that shadow. Sometimes shadows are cool, sometimes they're warm. You can use like different tones of gray, but for now I'm gonna stick with the blue. And I'm just gonna give a little hint down this side. That might even be hard for you guys to see on the, I know you can kind of see it on there. And that will give it a little bit of dimension so that our tooth looks like it's got a little bit of a volume to it, right? Because teeth are not flat. Here we go. I think this one's like a little bit more, tiny bit more blue here, just to make it a little bit darker. And there, I think that is pretty good. I'm really liking this. This makes me so happy that I went to the dentist today. Cool, so please send me your tooth fairy drawings and paintings. I would love to see them. You can DM me on Instagram or tag me at Lori Richmond Draws. I will repost them. I just love to see them. And remember to brush your teeth, take good care of your teeth, and floss too. And I will see you guys next week. So keep drawing and painting and having lots of fun, and I'll see you guys then. Bye.